Hello,
Now we're
everybody.
live.
Gideon and myself had the biggest solo chat in the universe ever.
We were having a absolute fat chat without everybody. I was saying hello to all of you, and then none of you were responding in the chat, and I was going, what's going on? And then I see above Carter's head where it's supposed to say live, it's saying scheduled, and I'm going, Carter,
You had
Houston,
one job.
we have a problem. I've done this before 3 times. I know this.
Well, Gideon, let's backtrack again. How are you doing tonight, my friend? Long time.
Jeepers. It's been an exhausting year. I think if I can describe 2020 as being repeatedly run over by an angry steamroller, that would be maybe kind of, but slowly. Like it starts at your toes, and you can just like feel the bones in your feet being like completely pulverized, and the pain that flows through you. It takes its time to get up to your head. So that's a bit like 2020. So I'm tired. I'm extremely angry at everything, but I'm too tired to express it adequately. That's the worst part of it. Yeah.
Oh man, that's. I'll quote Demi again. Like, tough time never lasts. Only tough people last. If you haven't seen that video, you should.
No, I should totally. And it was you, on the other hand, volunteered to do something with solar panels, and you ended up as the chairman of your building. So
yeah,
never volunteer for anything ever.
Yeah. I learned that the hard way. Now I'm Chairman Cheng, and I want to do some nice things for the building. First one on the order is building some resilience and becoming state-proof. Once again, doing the same thing that I always do. I want to catch some storm water. I want to do a case study if we do have a borehole. We are 194 units here. Do a case study if we actually take our monthly rates that we pay the municipality, if we can't redirect it, locally and maybe at a reduced rate, or keep the municipal water as a backup. It was a failover even. So I'll go through the costs there, and then obviously we've got a big area open here. I want to have an aeroponic urban garden here, so we can sell to the people living here and also to local restaurants and businesses and just people that are enthusiastic about fresh produce.
Well, you seem to have a good plan going there for you. I mean,
yeah, I've got a lot of them. Now it's up to the people with the expertise that I need to bring in, the engineers and the people that are way smarter than I am. And bring in a few of them, get a good opinion, do case studies and a few assessments, and get the ball rolling. So become more self-sufficient.
Yeah, I think we were going to talk about this whole investing in your own resilience business, because it's kind of what it's all about post-lockdown. As we know that the government has no desire to see services that they provide succeed. They also have an issue with people succeeding. We've established that much, but you can succeed. And I suppose, that's kind of part of this whole cynical thing is, on the one hand, it's nice to see people finally up in arms to express anger, but then they express it in a way that is not appropriate. And you start going, I wish we could take the same energy, because this energy is good, but invest that same energy in preparing your own resilience, preparing your families, preparing your communities, preparing structures in those communities in order to fight the criminals who murder people, as a single example of it. So I think South Africans have sufficient motivation. I just don't think we generally choose the right course of action necessarily all the time, which is the problem. Is the direction, not the emotions. And we can do it. I mean, what you're doing with your building is a fascinating example of a good way of doing it.
Yeah, it's practice what you preach, Gideon. And I was just on another stream with Joe Emilio. It was a nice, like-hearted discussion about what my goals are, and with my journey, my why is really to become more resilient in every which way. And if that means I have to, you're also an expert. So I want smarter people, or people that are specialized in their fields. And I really want, and it's not just about my growth, it's getting the message out there that you can do this. I had an example earlier in the show as well, where okay, fine. Sorry, guys, I've been rude. Hey, Amy. Hi, Gentle. Hi, Count. Hi, Eleutheria. Welcome to the show. Supermom. Okay, all the ladies are going to gush all over each other there for a minute, so I'll go on. So yeah, it's about building resilience. And as I do it, I'm going to bring in the experts, and I'm going to show you how to do it, how I'm building the aeroponic or hydroponic systems. I'm going to review different systems. I'm going to tell you which systems work best, and then kind of become an expert in the field, and just help people become more resilient. But tonight's episode is more focused on a phenomenon that Gideon and I have been looking at for a while and scratching our heads and not quite understanding it. Like, I don't know if we're missing something, Gideon, but
maybe.
But the request from people, farmers, civilians, everyone all around, asking the ANC government and SAPS for help or acknowledgement. Now, maybe the acknowledgement is great, because we do need to turn the tide of this debate. That I can understand. But why the hell would you take two entities that can't organize a piss up in a brewery and want them to help you? Because what I'll tell you is their sheer incompetence will make things worse. Alternatively, what I'll say is, if they can fund and get out of the fucking way, that might be good. If we can get some tax rebates for security, something like that, Gideon. So I think I'll kick off with something that I think is also relevant. Gideon, let's throw it to you, and you do your opening bit, and then we'll go on. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, no. Look, first, I'm not an expert. I just like to act like I'm one. But to put it very bluntly, if you look at the Jewish community in Johannesburg, they effectively have invested in a private security initiative that, for all intents and purposes, performs community policing to an extremely intricate and effective level. With that comes investing in private medical and emergency response infrastructure, all this sort of stuff. And they all fund this from within that community. They have effectively paralleled state services in a private sector application that has a community subscriber base. Now, farmers may not be able to, have a commando system of their own without, significant funding. They might not be able to afford doing that. They can definitely have something maybe less intricate, but also very effective. We've seen farm watchers be incredibly effective in the communities that take it very seriously, take their safety very seriously. But there is huge scope for these people to put forth a prospectus and say, listen, let's make this issue bigger than just farm security and farm murders, okay? Let's make this an issue of rural security in general. This applies to everybody. It applies to farmers. It applies to farm workers. It applies to the farm workers' families. It applies to people living in rural settlements and towns where safety and security is a massive problem. We can address all these things holistically through similar initiatives like the one of the Jewish community, but applied and tailored to a rural area. And we can get the funding from all the big retailers that are dependent on agriculture for the goods that they sell. So you go to the Pick and Pays, the Woolworths, the ShopRites, the major big conglomerates, and you say, listen, guys, we have a problem. It's affecting our ability to supply what you need. It is a direct threat to your supply chain management, the quality of life of your suppliers. And as a form of corporate social responsibility, we want you to invest in this program because we don't have the money to fund it ourselves. And it's transparent, and it applies to everyone in these communities, and it's good for the entire rural society. And I think a huge opportunity has potentially been missed there, and it would be a good idea for people to maybe circle back and think about that, because it also deracializes the debate instantly when you say, okay, we want to protect farmers, but we'll take that same initiative and we'll throw it across a broader spectrum. It'll be easier to get the funding. It's just a question of you're still going to get the result you want ultimately. You just have to approach it slightly differently.
Yeah, and I mean, you can even let's play with this, devil's advocate. You can even, in some cases, I think, let the government, corporate social responsibility, they do get tax breaks from that, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Or it's a tax deductible expense, so that's a win for corporates because they need to be incentivized to do this. But it's also food security at this rate, Gideon. I mean, I looked at the numbers in 94 till now. We had around 130,000 farmers. We're now down to 30,000.
No, that's a significant decline. I don't think that's not just solely attributable to to security. Also, there's obviously been a lot of structural changes in that industry, big time.
Look, as countries, as the service sectors and stuff mature, the amount of farmers go down with time. But the worry here might be that it might be going down disproportionately because it's not something that people aspire to. My dad's a farmer. It's bloody hard work. You're not only competing against nature every bloody day. You're wearing so many hats. You're a logistics manager, you're a first responder, you're a lawyer, you're an HR person. There's so many things that you have to do. And then we get meteoric droughts. These are 3 to 6 year droughts. If you're like having a great time, that's always great because you can't do anything or your yields are significantly lower. So your cost to recover, your interest is ranking up in the bank. So there we go. Farmers are also linked to the dollar. So if the dollar takes a hell of a hit, well, they pay more for seed, fertilizer. They also pay more for parts of their machinery. So if a tractor breaks, that part's price goes up significantly. The other side is, though, if the dollar increases, they get more for whatever they're peddling. So be it grain or sunflower, they're winning. But still, the very next day, they have to go buy stuff and it's much more expensive. Exactly. And the rand hasn't been doing great in the last while. And then, obviously, the biggest concern is the security concerns. It's already a very difficult job as is. And I've seen a lot of ignorant tweets this week where people say, I'll grow my garden. And I'm like, no, you fucking won't.
No.
Yeah, there's an economic fallacy. I've seen a lot, Gideon. Obviously, that's a clear theme in this country. People don't understand fundamental, rudimentary economics. The unions being the biggest culprits of this by far, and then the politicians as well, very much on par there.
No, that's it. And I can't even refer to it as a failure in the education system anymore, because if you're literate and numerate, this is a willful failure, or rather an example of willful ignorance to me. And even if you argue with people who think that and you correct them and you try to change the way that they think, they will still refuse to engage in a positive way on this because they're ideologically fixated on the fact that some weird socialist or ethno-nationalist talking points, and it's not constructive at all. It doesn't result. It's not solutions orientated. It doesn't result in things being fixed. It just takes the situation and makes it fucking worse, and that's really it. It drives me completely fucking nuts. Sorry for swearing so much on your show, by the way. But
please, I'll never be monetized, Gideon.
It's been one of those days. It's been one of those days, dude. Yes, like
no. You open the gates, son. Don't hold back. We're not here to get monetized. We're here to get the message out.
Yeah, we're not here to win friends we don't already have. So there you go.
Yes, for sure.
No, so to me, I think there's huge scope for different approaches that can win. And you're completely correct. Like the security situation in rural areas and specifically pertaining to farmers is not conducive to them being productive. It's not conducive to having stable food security. It's a huge issue, and it boggles my mind that it is not addressed as a priority crime a priority crisis. It flippin' is. But, for ideological reasons, it has to be ideological reasons. The ANC government just refuses to.
Yeah.
So appealing to people who refuse to acknowledge that you have a problem when it's glaring, appealing to people who have repeatedly expressed that either your problems don't exist or that the problem is your fault for existing and that you shouldn't complain when you get hurt because of whatever reasons. I mean, it's clearly being telegraphed that the authority you're appealing to save you not only isn't interested in saving you, but actively holds malicious feelings towards you and would probably prefer you get murdered or killed or driven off your land. That's very clearly telegraphed to me. I mean, I don't need to be a psychologist or a clairvoyant to figure this shit out. And I think neither do you, nor do anyone else with half a brain.
No, true. And I think we'll close. When we do close, I think we can go into the NDR because this is where everything is going.
Yeah.
And this is not random. This is not by coincidence. This is by design.
Yeah.
And this is what people should understand. So, Gideon, moving on from that then, I mean, exactly that. You don't ask your enemies to come and save you, do you? I hope you don't, because it won't end well.
I don't think I've gone down that particular horrible road yet. No, I'd like not to have to do that.
Exactly my point. Now, if people are actively antagonizing you, going against you, actively sabotaging attempts by anyone to actually try to help you or assist you in any which way, I mean, it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was Jaggy Salibi that dismantled the specialized unit of investigation that used to do the rural investigations and focused on rural farm murders, all that kind of stuff. And so that kind of shows you what route our government is taking on this. And then from me, I think the most important thing, and my podcast and my show is all about that, is building resilience. And now if you're in the middle of fucking nowhere, waar, as we say in Afrikaans, fokol so hoog groei.
Yeah.
And the more rural you are, usually the less people are around you, and the proximity that are around you becomes far larger, and it's much more ground to cover to get to your neighbor, where in some cases you might be a kilometer and your response time, if something does go down, might be 2 to 5 minutes. In other cases, it can be 5 to 10, even half an hour away drive for you to get to a neighbor. So my question is, if that is your neighbors to get to you and you've got some kind of rudimentary system, how long will it take the police? And why do people still insist on the police being your first responder on these situations? It just baffles my mind.
I don't get it. It's you are outsourcing your personal safety to a government and a justice system that has repeatedly proven to you that they cannot fulfill that specific task. It's just impossible. They don't have Marty McFly's, or Doc, whatever the hell he was called. They don't have the DeLorean. They don't have millisecond response times from call out. They don't have some sort of flux capacitor or teleportation device. They cannot be there when you need them. They can only respond after the fact. This is you still need to solve the problem on the spot. And I blame a lot of mushy, soft European thinking for this, where they go, oh, but there's a problem, just call the Polizei. It's like, well, listen, the problem here isn't your neighbors being slightly noisy because they had 1 or 2 too many Pilsners at the beer tent, okay? The problem here is you've got a really, or you're just having a slightly neighborly dispute with someone and it's becoming a bit loud and he's threatening to maybe punch you. That's not the level of problems we have in our society. Our problems are immediate and extremely violent, and that can usually result in the death of someone. I mean, there was that guy today, Temba. I forgot his surname. It starts with an N. I put him all over my Facebook page and all over my Twitter feed, who saved a woman from being raped in Soweto by basically helping her escape, and he paid the price for that with his life because the 4 men who were trying to rape her shot and killed him. Now, Temba was a first responder. He was on the scene. He was there. He acted. He was not adequately equipped to project lethal force or act in any other way So he did the best he could by facilitating someone's escape. The police were nowhere to be seen, right? In Senegal, Brendan Horner's murderers, or murderer, one of them at the very least, had been arrested for stock theft, I believe, 16 times previously. 16, okay? And he was out free. There is no Temba Nkumbi. Thank you, Count von Totekopf. Who a real hero, the man. Temba, so rest in peace to him. But the murderer of Brendan Horner, one of the murderers, was out 16 times after being arrested, 16 times for the same fucking crime. And you have to look at this and go, you really want to outsource your personal safety, your immediate safety to these people? Is that really what you want to do? Does that sound like a good idea to you? Because to me, it sounds absolutely fucking awful. But it's a free country. It's your choice. You're free to make terrible decisions if you so want. But no, I'm not on board with that.
Yeah, no, same here. It's actually, I think in Parliament, SAPS, one of the chiefs or someone actually admitted that they can't do their job. They're not properly resourced. Who was this again, Gideon? Do you remember?
That was Kehla Sitole, the National Commissioner of Police. And I think it was 30 October 2018. And he said to Parliament that the SAPS is overstretched and it is impossible, he used the words impossible, for them to fulfill their constitutional mandate, which essentially means, like, for the past 2 years now, the SAPS have been a nulle contract, for want of a better word, turn of phrase, and they are falling apart at the seams completely, to the extent where I'm hearing stories now that the VIP protection and presidential protection units are in the process of being separated from the SAPS completely. I'm just waiting for confirmation, but I believe that's the case. They'll become their own unique individual, independent entities directly answerable to the minister only. Because, and the reason why they're being cut out of the SAPS is because the SAPS is busy imploding. It's going to be turned into an administration service where the only thing you're going to get out of them is certified documents and be able to go lay complaints and submit sworn affidavits. That's it. I don't think their crime fighting ability is so reduced from where it was, and it's not going to get better. I just don't see it.
No, same here. Like one can look at the trajectory, and it's a downward death spiral at this stage. There's nothing to be excited about SAPS. And then before we go about like onto the practical side of this conversation about how one can attain that rural safety and practical ways of doing it, there's something to be said in what happened to Senegal. And Gideon, you earlier said that maybe they didn't act right, but in what I've seen is, what from all accounts and what I've heard is basically that police van was driving towards people, and it did that multiple times, and after that they rolled it. No one saw or knows who ignited the bucky. There's a few theories. There was a guy standing at the one end, and then there was a firefighter guy later, but these are two different people. And the one guy did seem that he was helping the fire along. It didn't seem like he was pouring water on it because it got more intense while he was standing there, but we don't have a facial, so we're a bit in the dark there. One cannot see that with 100% certainty. So probably so if a car's coming at you,
there's a lot of shenanigans that happen. So it's not particularly easy for there to be a clear position on it, which is why I kind of find it amusing that the media does, as if they know exactly what happened.
There was no mainstream media except for SABC, but they were the first guys to write the story when shit went south. And that was incredible. And then there's the Nyala that came in several times also, like a mad person went in there. And then it seems before they went into court, that same Nyala also dropped a flashbang grenade in a peaceful group of people and drove away like a coward. Now, after two attempts where it made shit, and I think they scrummed it out twice, I'm not sure, but they scrummed it out twice, and then they took their farming implements and they blocked the gate. And then when the police was not involved, it was peaceful. So one could make a very clear argument that the police was agitating the Boers. So Yeah, and then they went into the court, and 2 shots were fired. It seems it came from the police because they, in the audio clip goes, the guy said like return fire, but obviously no one had firearms on them because they were in the court. So yeah, that's mainstream media did not spare any time to go and start
Jump to conclusions.
100%. So please boycott all of them, and I'm going to call them out. News 24, Daily Maverick, as far as you can. Fuck them. Rather subscribe to
subscribe to this podcast, please.
Yep, okay. Hell yeah. And then also Morning Shot's a good source. The Daily Friend, the Institute for Race Relations, Ivo Factor, and lots of other good guys are there. You'll get some quality journalism. Anyway, enough punting. So Gideon, now we've bitched and moaned and kind of led let's say the route for this discussion, and we've grounded it. How does one become more resilient in a very remote, rural South Africa? What can one do to, start making yourself and family safe? And obviously, there's layers to this discussion, and there's layers to personal security. And again, you're the smarter one in the room, and I'll, from an amateur point of view, will add to it if I see fit. But you've got the dance floor, Gideon. Go.
Well, I'm basically just stealing from Brian because he wrote the framework, but also he based the framework off of ones that already exist.
What is Brian's official title or job description, Gideon?
Well, he's an incident management specialist for a Fortune 50 company. So he was in the police in the reaction unit back in the 90s. He did a lot of military security contract work in the Middle East prior to going corporate. So he's been around the block a few times. Sorry for me yawning. It's very rude, but I'm absolutely, as you can probably tell, like a broken, shattered husk. And this is just Monday. But in essence, I hope I'm still coherent.
Yes.
The framework pertains to, as you mentioned, layers. Okay, so there's you yourself and your family unit, which you would prefer the threat don't get to you, but if a threat does occur, that you are at least forewarned that it exists and that it is in your space, and more or less where in your space it is. So you get a lot of passive security layers. Passive security layers are stuff like burglar bars, fences, anything that passively work to keep intruders out. They are not fail-safe. They are literally worst case, they exist to just slow intruders down a bit, okay, to make it harder for them to get in. Never impossible. Part of your layering is also early warning systems, whether it's trail cameras, alarms, whatever, but something that'll alert you to something being wrong in your immediate sort of living space. That would be the farmhouse itself. And then obviously you need a response capacity and a response plan within your family to respond to a threat when it does arise and when you figure out where it is. You can take this passive plan or this farm-centric, family-centric plan, and you can expand it to other families. And then once you have that in place, you start creating a count. You create a community-centric sort of network that then takes this concept and applies it more broadly. Now you start policing and securing your entire district. That'll take a lot more resources, but it's also possible to do. So you have it small scale, you have it medium scale, you have it large scale, and it is doable. But it requires you to, again, and we've spoken about this repeatedly on this podcast, invest in your own resilience and resilience of your family. That's of fundamental importance.
Yeah.
And not outsource it. You can't outsource it.
So yeah, that's a few very good points there. And if I might, maybe my knowledge is not as extensive, so I'll just jump through it, what I know. I think from a very young age, if the children can hold a weapon, they should be trained. I don't think, like you say, we should take any chances anymore. We're way past the point where we can say, like, if they're 6 or 8, well, let's say 8, I don't know what an age is. This is an arbitrary number. If so,
It is an arbitrary number.
yes. Whatever you think they're ready, like start taking them with the Rangers, gun safety for the win. Teach them how to shoot, how to get familiar with firearms. I mean, I grew up on a farm, so from a young age I started shooting and practicing at the farm. And the rural areas are a bit different than city dwellers. We tend to get exposed to firearms from a younger age in general. So I'd say do that, and also make self-defense classes for your children mandatory, and for yourself, your wife, the husband. There's no exceptions here, because if you get shot with the first round, your family is at the mercy of these criminals.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just the self-defense classes. Now there are layers to those as well. Okay, we can talk about firearm fundamentals, we can talk about combatives, both of which are important and have their own application, and they are very neatly interlinked. And hello, Amy, by the way. I don't know if I said hello to Amy yet, but now I have. You take these concepts and you can peel them like the Shrek layers to the onion, okay? And you can go deeper into more layers where you talk about fighting in around vehicles, fighting in around houses, fighting injured. Highly important, in addition to this, basic first aid and stop the bleed, like austere environment trauma care. These are all things that are not difficult to learn. A stop the bleed course is 4 hours. Okay, that's what it takes to get that knowledge. Now, it's knowledge that you're going to have to apply, practice, refresh regularly, because you can't just go on a course once and think, okay, I know what I'm doing now. That's not quite how it works. Unless you use a skill, you need to keep on refreshing it on like a 6 monthly or annual basis. So add to that, then there's also other aspects of understand your passive security layers and understand your active security layers, and understand how you fit in and how the family fits in, and plan it. There's a lot to it, but none of it is complicated. It's all, if you think about it for a moment, it's all common sense. People come up with really weird and wonderful ideas, though, about how they're going to put like ambush bear traps in their garden, and how they're going to dive roll like an Israeli commando out the window, and how they're going to get their friends and assault the barn. And if it sounds Hollywood, it is Hollywood, and it's not applicable. The stuff that works is boring, unsexy, and practical. The practical stuff works. We've seen the practical stuff works. The fancy stuff doesn't. That's the best differentiation I have.
Well, that's a very good way to cut it. I mean, and it makes actual sense. Like me as a layman, I can just think jumping through a window. Fuck! Now I've alerted them to my position. Doing Rambo stuff and being loud in any which way. I think stealthy most probably is the best way to go about it. Keeping low as you move. Yeah, low, slow, and careful. And obviously you've got the advantage, you know the place better. So you've got a strategic advantage of knowing where the choke points in your house are. And no, Amy, it's not those choke points that you like. It's actually it's actually in places where spaces where things converge. So in my place, for instance, I've got a door, I've got the outside balcony. So they would have to converge and go through the hall. So you can set people up maybe for a little ambush or some fun. But yeah, again, Gideon, you can continue on that.
I was about to say, in general, look, if you there was an old statistic, and I'm quoting it under severe correction, but your force multiplier of fortifying yourself in your house is 3. So it means that if you are alone and there are 3 people coming into your house, you are 1 versus 3 is a fair fight. So,
oh, that's good
under those circumstances. So there's a lot to be said to not unnecessarily going outside to check on noises, because that's where they get you. That's where they get a lot of their victims. Try to set things up so that you don't have to leave the house at 3 a.m. Basic stuff like that. That's also why I recommend training with people who also know what they're doing. Guys like Arno Bardo, Mark Eman, Dion Kutsia from Fortis Proactive Defense Solutions. James Smart is pretty good at this sort of stuff. There are a lot of really good world-class instructors in SA that can assist people in getting the knowledge and skills to being more effective at this.
Who's in KZN, Gideon?
KZN is a difficult one because there's something called the Durban virus, which for some bizarre reason means people don't attend the courses there that they should. But the people that I usually refer to are guys like Rick McNamee. You can find him under Prepare to Win. I think it's P2W. Let me tell you. Let me quickly find him on the Facebooks here.
The Facebook boot.
The Facebook's P2. Is it P2? Yeah, it's P2W. So P2, the number 2W, Personal Security Consulting. I don't know if Rick still does training, but he does referrals, and he's a good guy. He knows what he's doing.
Good stuff.
And he is directly affiliated with the combative concept guys on Ebola and those. So Rick's a really good, solid guy. So I'd recommend him, and he is in Durbs. You are in which part of Durbs? You're Toti, ne?
Toti van Aman. Yes.
Yes.
There
Okay,
we
so
go.
you have car will travel.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
No, definitely. I like I said KZN for a reason. So if it's in Maritzburg or Durban or more north, Richards Bay, I can travel. So no harm, no foul there.
Okay, no, awesome stuff.
Okay, Gideon, you can continue on that on that note.
On that vein, jeepers, I'm really like so essentially we spoke earlier about having that same model as the Jewish community in Joburg have. We have security that is funded within the community and obviously externally, that's not just rented security guards or hired guards with guns. It also involves the community directly involved in their own policing and their own security. It's incredibly important that people are involved in their own security frameworks. Same with the medical responders, first aid, first responders, and a lot of farming communities already do stuff like this as it is. This is not like anything new or revolutionary. There are a lot that through various types of organizations have set up similar structures, and they've been highly successful in the communities where they have been applied. So it's a case of people just need to really start investing in themselves, their families, and take it seriously. Attitude is a far bigger worry than funding or ability, because if you don't have the right attitude towards your own safety, you won't actually take the steps to protect it with sufficient vigor, I suppose, if one can put it that way.
Account.
At Supreme Minister of the Luftwaffe, passed my competency combo. Oh, brilliant. The Paratus militia is growing. It's growing. We might soon be the biggest militia in the Southern Hemisphere at this rate.
No, for sure. And I'm happy for that. Like I said, I've got my stuff to sort as well. So yeah, I'll get that done and I'll join the ranks for sure.
Amy had questions. She needed to do training, and I promised I would get back with the provider, and I actually haven't done that. Whereabouts is she located? She's in
East Rand Boot.
East Rand. I think I referred to Elite Firearms Training, EFT. That's run by a guy called Davey Gate. They're in Boksburg, but they're very good. And if that doesn't work, Dave Shear Guns, I think they're in Bramley. It's a bit of a stretch away from the East Rand, but they're also quite good. So hello, Mandy. And I'm on. So yeah, that's it. But please throw questions at me. How else can I suppose, add value?
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, this stuff doesn't just apply to farming communities. You can take the same concept and apply it in an urban or suburban setting. You know, the most important thing to remember is you as an individual are always your own first responder. So take the steps to make you as good at it as possible. Your opposition isn't particularly skilled either, guys. They just do a lot of crime and violent stuff. So obviously they're skilled through doing, but they don't have superior training to the average person. They don't have superior, shall I say, knowledge or skills. Their attitude is aggressive, which is probably more aggressive than yours. So you need to kind of mitigate against that. But ultimately, if you think about it, a lot of criminal gangs, a lot of CIT heist outfits, if you can call them that, when they get involved in shootouts with the police, they come second in a lot of cases. And the police do about 50 rounds of ammunition's worth of shooting annually, if they even do it. So, and they are poorly equipped, and they don't always have ammunition available, even in their service weapons. So if the cops can do this, you can do this. I think that's the important thing to take away. So that's the thing. But Carter, how about resilience? You say you've got a hydroponic setup that you want to. How big are we talking? Because this is also part of being resilient, is not being dependent on going to a grocery store for everything.
Yeah. So Gideon and myself, we had a lucky episode. I think you were episode 2 and 4, where we
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, where we did not actually talk about guns. We went into the ideological Marxist bandwagon, and we just bashed it with multiple sticks. But we fired a few shots and threw a few click-type petrol bombs at it. So it's a good episode. You guys should totally check it out. I think most people here have listened to the podcast. If not, find it on Twitter in the links, or my mods can be useful for once and post the episodes in the post below. So yes. So Gideon and I basically concluded that resilience is a mindset first. And by actually asking yourself how and where and why you want to become resilient, you start actually manifesting it. And one of the things is a secure food source. So if you're able to grow your own and then preserve your own, you're in a good space. In my previous stream, I spoke about, I actually still have it here. This is a future hot sauce. It's a habanero, a red pepper hot sauce. It's been in here for more than a year. No growth, perfectly preserved, probably very flavorful by now, just by adding salt and water. So fermenting is just salt and water, and it does its thing. It perfectly preserves.
Can you share this to us again? Because wait a second, that hot sauce thing is very interesting. Because that's actually very cool. Just say again, what's all in there?
That's the habaneros. That's actual red bell peppers, and that is not leeks. Yeah, I think it's like, what's the leek? Yeah, it's leeks and onions. And this basically gets grounded down. So I take the brine out, the liquid part, and then I put it in a blender, and I add the liquid in small increments until I get the consistency that I want, and bam, hot sauce. Amazing hot sauce, by the way, Gideon. If you're a hot sauce fan, I'll definitely send.
I'm a big time hot sauce fan.
Great stuff.
Yeah. So I'm always curious to see how people do theirs, because I've never tried making my own. So
yeah. So I ferment them. I actually have a side channel called Sorcery DTF. It's down to flavor, which is wordplay and a bit of foreplay. And I've done all manner of very exotic hot sauces, from pineapple, habanero, mango, red. What is that? Those red chilies and mango. I've got a mash behind me as well, a jalapeno one with cumin, mustard seeds. I think coriander as well. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So yeah, I'm trying some interesting stuff, and then I want to make small batches and sell them. But what I also want to do, Gideon, is actually have shows where I've got a guest on actually at their place, or if we have to stream, I'll stream it, and we have a cook-off remotely where I make some stuff, you make some stuff, we hang out with the audience, and we have a drawl and a few drinks. So that's a future plan of mine. So yeah. And then the ancient art of canning, people. Like, this is canned tomato and basil. There's a big ass basil leaf in here. There's tomato, salt, and that's it. It's on a rack. I don't have to put it in the fridge. It's vacuum sealed by the heat. So very good shit. Let me not lie.
I was about to say.
So the idea is food security. So if I've got an excess in my harvest, I can actually take it and I can store it. I can either can it, which means I'm cooking it up into a high temperature. I'm adding the ingredients, and I'm putting it into a vessel, and I'm sealing it while it's still very hot. It creates an air vacuum seal, and it's basically completely sanitized because I've washed it before, or I ferment it. And the fermentation, you can do chunks of carrots or whatever. There's many ways to skin a cat there. And then you've got food security all year round, because traditionally we used to ferment or pickle our food in the winter time for the long winters. And while now we've got shops and 24/7 access to food, and become lazy and complacent. But once you've made this yourself, you won't go back. It's quite delicious. But anyway, regardless. So resilience is a mindset. And once you decide that I want security has many layers. It's personal security, it's parameter security, it's security of my water, of my electricity supply. It's also my food security. What happens if my traditional places that I get it from, it's not operating? With the lockdown, we had shops not holding some items for months on end. You don't want that kind of situations. And then as well, having the means and extra resources when shit does hit the fan. I mean, if you can grow your own food, you've got a spare water reservoir, and you've got a few solar panels. I mean, you're practically very good. You're on a high scale. So my idea is to actually develop a scale on how far you're at. Do you have a firearm? Do you know a bit of self-defense? How secure is your house, your home? And then obviously spare supplies that you have, like how much do you have? How long can you go? So very much with the guys, these are already established things.
I was about to say, we almost are beginning to sound a little bit like we're preppers here. And
there we go.
And there's such a negative stigma to that word, but the concept is so bloody sound. And I think that's exactly what we've been taught now with lockdown, is the fact that your government can pull the rug out from under your feet in the space of 24 hours. They can quite literally ruin decades of career building, of future planning, of everything in an instant. Do you have physical resources and skills and knowledge to cushion that blow while you figure out a way how to deal with the medium to longer term effects of it? And if you don't, well, then you need to start thinking along those lines.
Let's think about this practically, Gideon. If you had a spare freezer full of meat, you had cash stashed somewhere in a safe, like extra cash, Sarge doesn't have to know about it. You had lots of supplies somewhere, and for at least 6 months you're good. If they freeze your bank account, you've got enough cash around. Now, if let's take you as an example. You're a great example of a rug that was ripped and out underneath you, and you were unable to work. Like overnight, they said, "Sorry,
bye-bye.
Captain, bye-bye." And if you can maybe elaborate on that and the effect it had on your financials, because I've seen people burn through their life savings in this time as well. It's incredible, and it's a bloody crime. I can't condemn this enough.
No, I think my story is no more special than anyone else that had the rug ripped underneath them, and I think I dealt with it about as badly as most of us did. Lots of us aren't really, we don't really have a lot of altitude in our little personal life airplanes when just due to the nature of life of this country. So when an event like that happens, you are crashing into the trees already. And I think that's also it explains why so many people lost hope and committed suicide and were forced into really regrettable situations because they just felt like there was nothing else they could do. They were trapped. And this is exactly the thing. And it's a crime against humanity what was perpetrated here. This entire system was the worst, most malicious calculation, I think, in modern history. I mean, that is obviously excluding the events that led up to World War I and World War II, but those were different. This was a educated, wrong fucking decision made on the 21st century with all the scientific and economic resources and knowledge available at our fingertips. And a whole bunch of us came out at the start and saying, we cannot take this. It's going to be a disaster. And people were like, you just want grandma to die. Now, 6 to 7 months in, grandma is still not dead. But the economy fucking is, as is a whole bunch of young people whose futures were robbed from them. I think we have to ask, okay, what have we learned? And how are we going to prevent this from happening to us again? Well, let's rephrase. We will never be able to prevent the government from making terrible decisions in the future, terrible, far-reaching and destructive decisions in the future, unless we live in anarchy, which is something I wouldn't mind doing, where the government doesn't exist and a corpus of active citizens like administer their own affairs. I would love to see that happen. I don't think it's gonna.
So Gideon's basically referring to, in each community, instead of us paying a fuck ton of money to the government in taxes and getting fuck all for it, we actually, as citizens, crowdfund everything ourselves. So in a community, we'll crowdfund everything. And but because we're setting off the course of tax, I didn't think that's such a bad thing, because you've got 30 or 40% of your salary back, and you're also paying those rates and taxes anyway. So making a decent amount, saying what your budget is, actually doing the assessments, you can actually quickly see what the cost will be for maintenance and future expansion, and even building superior, modernized systems that are much more efficient and cheaper to maintain in the long run.
Exactly. It's exactly it. So it's kind of what you're doing with your building right now. Well, not kind of. It's exactly what you're doing.
Exactly what I'm doing. I'm trying to get off the state infrastructure. I'm trying to catch the stormwater, using the stormwater to water the gardens, to wash the cars, to fill the pool up. All those non-drinking applications, as far as we can go. In the toilets, maybe the public toilets outside that's next to the pool, they can flush with that water, no problem. If we want to make it drinkable, we have to invest some time and money into that. But for all intents and purposes, we have a storm drain with about, I think, a 20,000 liter capacity. And when I asked, so are we using this? They said no. I'm like, why the fuck not? Like, you can get a solar pump there that creates adequate pressure for a couple of $1,000 and can pump pretty much into anywhere in this facility. So yes, I'm doing this. I'm being a fucking adult for once. So it's
awesome,
it's quite
stuff,
fun,
dude.
Man, it's interesting. And it gives me the opportunity to meet again. I'm the reason why I have this show. I'm indulging in speaking to highly competent and smart ass people as yourself, and interesting people, where I can learn myself. So one of the reasons
I would just call myself your resident weirdo, but thank you, Carter, for the compliment. I appreciate it.
Well, at least the fun thing is I only take on weirdos with some brain power, Gideon. So consider yourself lucky.
I'll take it.
You'll take it. So you can finish, and then I think we should start moving to the end, and you know exactly where we're going. Like, what is so? Just say what you wanted to say.
I think you pretty much covered it all. It's the fact that we won't stop government from making terrible decisions in the future. So the only thing we can control is our planning and response to the next terrible fucking decision. That's it, really.
Yes. Like your ex-girlfriend, the government is making terrible decisions and you have to pay for it anyway. So brace yourself, bitches. So Gideon and I, we know exactly where this is going, and we thought we'll give you the spoiler alert. So the government has a sexy thing that a sexy piece of policy that's directly from the Communist Manifesto. Russia loves it, China loves it, and it's called something like the NDR, the National Democratic Revolution. I don't know, anyone heard of this thing before?
I'm sure really they must have.
Okay. So, Gideon, I think you can give this intro. I strained my brain on the previous one. It's basically, let me give the vanilla overview of it, and then we can dig into it. It calls for the profound economic changes, drastic agrarian reform to restore the land to the people. Yes, as when Cyril says that, our people, I want to fucking transfer to him and give him PKs. Anyway, widespread nationalism of key industries to break the grip of white monopoly capital, main centers of the country's economy, radical improvements in conditions and standards of living for the working people. I love the fact that you think you can bring around radical improvements in the conditions of standards of living for the working people when you implement communism, because it's never happened. It goes radically down into shithole status, which we're almost at, mind you. I mean, it's been gazetted.
So the whole NDR, I can just summarize it even shorter and say it's essentially centralized government control over all aspects of private, political, and economic life. That's really the bare bones, horrible, cold hard truth of it. And we've seen now with those black farmers in Mpumalanga, they were productive. I mean, they got state land, they were leasing, they were making one hell of a success story of it, which is what JC is talking about. And then they refused to pay bribes and bullshit to the local ANC bigwigs. And they effectively got evicted from land that they were productive on for a great many years and that they've invested time, effort, and resources into. So when the government retains control over resources and they just sort of lease them out or they hand them out, it also means that they can revoke these resources at will and at whim. We'd be living in a feudal state where the government's the king and the emperor and God knows what else, and every single citizen is just a subject and a serf. You're not really a citizen anymore. Which is why I'm drawing my hard line in the sand about if they say, okay, well, I've got many lines in the sand, but one that they must never fucking cross with me is they say, okay, but we're coming to confiscate people's guns. I'm like, well, I hope you bring a lot of fucking body bags because you ain't getting mine. That's just the way it is. And that's how a great many people feel in South Africa, because we know what the consequences of civilian disarmament is. There are a great many examples. And I don't really feel like dying in a re-education camp. Education camp, obviously. Have you seen the state of public education in this country? Would you go to a re-education camp knowing, that you're not going to get a textbook and probably not a meal or a blackboard? No. Nope. Doesn't work for me. No. Sorry.
Done. And neither do I want... I don't want to end up in a government hospital because you'll go in for a flu and you'll fucking lose a leg or toe. And there's been cases where people have been wrongfully amputated in our state hospital. Great success. So if you can afford it, please have medical aid. And the reason why you're paying so much for medical aid, by the way, it's because it's overregulated again by government. So just putting it out there. Another thing that just to add to what you're saying, Gideon, the road to economical freedom. And I'm not going to say fighters because I'm tempted to. The road to economical freedom is generational wealth. That means even if it's not a lot, in this generation, I give something to my children. And whether it's a shitty one-bedroom place, I give it to them and hopefully they give a 2 or 3 bedroom place to the next generation. And obviously, the biggest common denominator for you to get to a level where you can afford this is a good education. Yeah. So if we had a decent education system, we would have had more than 9% or probably 8 or 7 now with all the immigrations and bullshits and murders here of people paying actual income tax in this country. Because currently we're carrying kind of everyone with income tax. And if it was more, if our education system was better, hopefully, and better economical policies, we could have been at 15 or 20 or 30 or 50%. But anyway, bad policies is the order of the day. So here we are. Title deeds is not being given to these farmers. Like Gideon mentioned, it's a feudal system, which means you don't get a title deed, which means I can't go borrow any money to invest any capital on my farm because it's not my property to borrow from. It belongs to the state. So the state is the custodian of the property, which means these farmers are reliant, as that article, on the state for seed, for fertilizer, for tractors, for maintenance. And worst of all, what they're not getting is training. They don't get training. They're like, here you go, here's your seed, here's your tractor.
Good luck.
Jou moer gaan boer. And that's it. And they expect success stories, and some people actually manage, against all odds, to have success stories. And some of the white neighbors, and I'm saying white intentionally because we've had so much shit and bad press as white people in this goddamn country, actually go up and help their fellow black neighbor wanting to farm without getting a cent for it, because it's my neighbor, I want him to succeed. Probably I don't want my next door neighbor to have a shitty view over the fence, but more than anything, they want to help. If you just ask, we will help. Farmers are very generous people. They're very hardy people, and they know how difficult farming is, and they'll lend a hand. I've never seen a neighbor on a farm, any color, any creed, ask for help and being said flat out, no. It doesn't happen. Farmers stick together and they actually help each other regardless of creed and race. And mainstream media seems to undermine that on every occasion that they can. The only people playing the race card is basically government and mainstream media. The rest of us, we want to keep our families safe. We want to earn a decent salary. We get taxed the fuck out of us, so that's kind of impossible, but here we are. And we don't want our shit being expropriated now or ever. And government has done a few things, and they've done it very well. Law enforcement is very shit in this country. You can petrol bomb a store, but by God, you tip a police bucky, then you're the biggest shit in the world. And the double standards in this country is becoming incredible, and it's not slowing down. So arm yourselves, become more self-sufficient, and become less reliant on state institutions and state infrastructure. And that is my parting message to all of you fuckers. And then obviously tune into the White Noise podcast every Friday. Specials like these I'll release between Monday or Wednesday every week as well. So it will also be available on the podcast. Gideon, your closing wisdom for us, kind sir.
I think you covered all of it. It's like... understand that your life matters and it is worth defending, and equip yourself appropriately with knowledge and skills, attitude and equipment, tools in which to defend your life and the lives of the people that matter to you. That's basically it from me. That's
short and sweet. Anyone in the comments? I'll leave this on for a minute or so more. And then we can close this bitch off. And JC, you're right. Like I've only seen people getting along. I'm in the corporate world. Black, Chinese, Japanese, Chuck E. Cheese. People don't give a fuck. They're just there to work. And actually, people there's a lot of good faith. There are lots of ignorant people, lots of fucking Twitter assholes out there. Yep. But luckily, it's small enough that it doesn't even act as a sample for the population. So that's a good and a bad thing, because the ANC sentiment is quite anti-sentiment, and you wish the whole country would be like that and would be aware of what's going on. But one can only hope that the government's overreach this time will cost them dearly, because not only that they beat the shit out of people in rural locations and cost people their livelihoods and stop them from working. They took away their booze, they took away their cigarettes. And I really hope people stay angry about that. They shouldn't let up. They shouldn't give them slack. And then obviously the amount of theft and corruption during COVID, which is atrocious, because I think everyone was kind of we were fucked off about corruption, but the callousness of the ANC of stealing so much during a scamdemic, let's call it what it is, telling us we can't work, we can't do anything, and then enriching themselves at such a rate and driving off with new sports cars it's incredible. And luckily, the word is out to the IMF, and their days are numbered. Their money is done. Basically, the last two honeypots they have left is our pensions and private property. and assets. So hopefully we can cock block them. Anyone drop a link for Dear South Africa? I think it's the easiest way to actually stop this, or at least protest against or counter these cuck
ideas,
policies.
definitely.
Yeah,
Policies, absolutely. I think it's dearsouthafrica.coza.
let me see.
Dear Dearsouthafrica.coza.
Yeah, we need to know how to go about this, and you can't complain if you don't partake. And this is Gideon's wisdom that he dropped on me. Like, it's not. Oh, there we go. It's not that. Sorry for that. It's not that democracy is necessarily bad. Democracy relies on people actively participating as citizens, and we've been doing well. Most of us probably have done a good job, but most citizens don't. And that's why democracy is in such a sorry, shitty state at this stage.
Yeah. Exactamundo.
There we go. Okay. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. I'll be releasing Friday's episode. It is with the dodgy ID lists. I had him on the show. We had a very interesting chat. So episode 1 of, I think it's definitely going to be a 2-part episode, will be released this Friday. And tune in. I've got Mareka on Thursday on another stream where we talk about futuristic sci-fi movies all having a totalitarian kind of socialist vibe to them, and she will give that whole analysis of all her sci-fi movies that have this one world government totalitarian kind of vibe to it. So I'll probably set up the stream for Thursday tomorrow, and I'll send it out on Twitter, and all of you can join us there.
Fantastic. I look forward to that episode, by the way.
It's going to be a good one. I'm looking forward to it as well. So, yeah. Well, thank you, Power Mods. I think everyone mostly here that know me well have been granted that godlike status. So, use that power irresponsibly, please, and whack a lefty on my behalf. Cheers, everybody. Have a good evening.
Cheers, guys.